A very warm welcome to StudyIQ, my dear friends. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you all are doing good. Today is 18th November 2020. Day is Wednesday. I would like to start today's discussion with this quote by George Bernard Shaw. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Yesterday as well, we were talking about change, and today as well, I have this interesting quote from George Bernard Shaw that if you don't change your mind, here mind means if you don't change your thinking, if you don't change your viewpoint, you cannot change anything. And if you cannot change anything, you cannot progress. Simple as that. With this difference, if you are preparing for UPSC Civil Services Examination, then we have a dedicated smart course that will help you with your pre as well as mains examination. To find out more about it, all you have to do is download our mobile application. On our table, we have 4 articles from the Hindu newspaper. The first one is about COVID vaccine. The second one is about Armenia and Azerbaijan. Third one is on India and USA. And the fourth one is about constitutional fault lines. We'll talk about it in detail when we reach here. So let's start our discussion with the first one. The topic name is a shot in the arm. It's about COVID vaccine. Now, you know these two companies, right? Two famous names in today's world, Pfizer and Moderna. And both these companies announced promising results from their ongoing phase 3 trial of a potential COVID-19 vaccines. So, Moderna has declared that it has achieved 94.5% effectiveness, or its vaccine is 94.5% effective. Pfizer has said that its vaccine is 90% plus, so it's somewhere around 92%, right? But both these vaccines are 90% plus effective. That is a very, very positive news for the whole world and for humanity. Now, keep this thing in mind that as far as this Moderna is concerned, they have tried this vaccine on some 30,000 people in USA, and the result so far is 94.5%, which is great. Now, the more you try, means the more this vaccine will be administered to more people. This effectiveness may come down, right? It may come down, let's say, by 5% or 10% or 15%. I'm not sure. It all depends. But as far as your vaccine is 50% or 50% plus effective, then FDA will give you a green signal. So far, all the vaccines, all the medicines, if they are 50% plus effective, then they are okay to have. The medicines that we take, most of them are 50%. They have this effectiveness ratio somewhere around, effectiveness percentage, 50% or a little bit more than that. So these two vaccines are quite promising. Now, you have to keep this thing in mind as well, that the results were announced as a company news release and not in a scientific journal. That indicates that review by independent experts is still pending. This is also known as peer review. Peer review means it's a very important thing. Many a times you read what that peer reviewed or it is not peer reviewed, but I believe many times we don't know what peer review is actually all about. So peer review means that let's say here we are talking about vaccine. So, one company, let's say Pfizer, has said that its vaccine is 90% plus effective. So, other companies, other stakeholders, universities who are working on this particular topic, then other companies and other government agencies, they will do a research on this thing. They will try this formula and they will conduct a test, and then they will also say their findings, whether that is right or wrong, whatever it is, So this is called peer reviewing, when people in the same field, or your competitors or people working in the same field, they will do their own testing based on your finding, and then they will tell you whether what you have achieved is right or wrong, whether they agree with you or not. So peer review is very important thing as far as academics is concerned, as far as research is concerned, particularly in medicine. It is very, very important. So this is something that is still pending, but I'm sure things will be in positive side. Now, a few days ago, I told you that these two vaccines, they follow this mRNA technology, isn't it? So tell me, what do you understand by mRNA, or how it works? This is a question for you guys. It's very important. A few days ago, I explained you how it works, and I want to know that you are doing your revisions properly. If you are not, then I want you guys to do it on regular basis, because this is a very important topic. They can easily ask you what is mRNA in your prelims examination. Even in your mains examination, they can ask you a small question about mRNA, right? And all you have to do is just explain the things that you have understood, right? Use some technical words, and that's it. Your job is done. You will get maximum mark in this type of questions. There are two benefits of vaccines that are based on mRNA. The first one is that no physical part of virus is introduced, reducing the odds of adverse reactions. Number two, the number of doses can be quickly scaled up, as they do not need mammalian cells. You don't need cells from any mammals. So if you want to do mass production of doses, then it becomes much easier. So these are the two benefits of vaccines based on mRNA. There are two cons as well. Two cons. The first one is, such vaccines have never been commercially produced. And the second thing is, you need sub-zero refrigeration facilities to store and transport this vaccine. And this is a bit of problem, because not every nation on this planet, they have this sub-zero refrigeration facilities. So these are the two negative points about mRNA. Okay. Now, in case of Moderna, the good news is that Moderna has claimed that its vaccine can survive for 30 days in a refrigerator and could last 12 hours at a room temperature. So this is going to be a bit positive. Now, as far as India is concerned, we are not going to directly benefit or not see any sort of significant gain from Moderna, but by time when Moderna will come out with this peer review will be done, and when it will start producing vaccines, at that point of time we will see more vaccines finishing their trial 3, this third phase trial, and Indian candidate will be ready by that time. And I have one more question for you. Can you give me the name of this Indian COVID vaccine candidate? Stick your answer in the comment section. This is your second question for the day. But anyway, the good news is that we see so many vaccines. Two of them, or 3-4 of them, they have finished their third phase trials, and a few of them are in third phase. They are about to reach the finish line. So it's going to be a win. It is indeed a win-win news for the whole world. Now, the second topic is fragile ceasefire. This one is about Armenia and Azerbaijan. And it is about this region called Nagorno-Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh, I'm going to refer it as NK. So when I say NK, I'm talking about Nagorno-Karabakh. Okay? Now, there is a good news coming from this region, and the good news is that ceasefire agreement, a Russian brokered ceasefire agreement has been signed between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This is a good news, but there are some warning signs as well. We'll talk about it as we move on. But first of all, let me take you through this region here. Regular students, I'm sure you know this region very well, because this is not the first time it is on our table. But for new students, this region here, this country is Azerbaijan, as you can see, right? Follow this nation is Azerbaijan. Baku is its capital. And then you have one country here, that is Armenia. And you can see Turkey is here. This country here is Russia, right? Georgia is here. You can see Iran here. And this is Caspian Sea. Okay. So this dark green region here is NK region. So I'll give you a very brief history about this part of the world. Till 1991, these nations were part of USSR. After this breakup of USSR, we saw so many countries coming into existence. So NK was part of Azerbaijan, but people living in this NK, they were Armenian, right? So Armenia and Azerbaijan, they had this war because of this NK in early 90s. So 1991 till 1994, 1991 till 94, they had this war, and in 94 they had this ceasefire agreement between them. So most of this portion was controlled. It belonged to Azerbaijan, but it was taken over by Armenia in this war. Okay, and people living here are Armenian as far as their ethnicity is concerned. So this problem was going on. It's just like India-Pakistan. It's exactly like India-Pakistan. The only thing is intensity is a bit lower. Our intensity, yesterday we were talking about it, isn't it? That just one terrorist can create a war-like situation with this two nuclear-powered country, that is India and Pakistan. Anyway, coming back to this topic, before Azerbaijan, President Ilham Aliyev went to war in late September 2020. NK and its surrounding villages connecting the enclave with mainland Armenia were controlled by either Armenian troops or their proxies. But things have changed now. As I told you that they had this war in 1990s, early 1990s, and 1994 ceasefire agreement was signed between both the nations. But the thing is, when in the latest September war, when Mr. Aliyev or Azerbaijan, when he launched this offensive, Turkey was strongly supporting Azerbaijan. Okay, and what happened is, the war that took place in 1991-1994, Armenia was, the victor or the winner. But this time, Azerbaijan has won this small 6 weeks war. In this war, they have Azerbaijan has captured several areas around NK from Armenia, including the strategic Shusha, a city just 16 kilometers from NK's capital, that is Stepanakert. On the other side, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan is facing a political backlash. Foreign Minister has resigned. President has asked Nikol to resign, and people are opposing his decision for ceasefire, and they are not happy at all with Armenia losing NK region or part of NK region. So things are, you can say that there is a political crisis in Armenia. So clearly Armenia is weak when you compare it with Azerbaijan. In Azerbaijan, people are happy and the government is happy and government has achieved something, and this sort of sentiments are there in Azerbaijan. Now, as I told you, Turkey strongly supported Azerbaijan, and Russia and Armenia, they have this secret or security agreement with each other, not secret, but security agreement with each other. So Russia has a security agreement with Armenia, but Russia remained neutral. And it is good that Russia remained neutral because Russia is a very powerful country. So just imagine if Russia would have supported Armenia against Azerbaijan, then Azerbaijan and Armenia would have to, they will be thrown in backbenches, and then it will be a full-fledged war between Russia and Turkey, isn't it? And it may last for a very long period of time, because Turkey is also, when you compare it with Russia, it's not as strong as Russia, but it is, of course, a country that will try its level best to fight. So a heavyweight, of course. Turkey is also a heavyweight. Russia is also a heavyweight. So that's good that Russia has not involved itself directly in this war. But while the ceasefire has reinforced Russia's influence in the region, the ceasefire or Russia back to ceasefire indicates that Russia's influence is still here in this region. And let me tell you one more thing, that no big nation, no powerful nation will allow any sort of war-like situation in its backyard or in its nearby area. So it's good that Russia's influence is still here, that Russia can broker a ceasefire. But the war itself indicates that Russia's clout in this region has declined. If Russia's clout or Russia's grip would be great in this region, then we would never see this sort of situation like a war. But war taking place indicates that Russia's influence is or has declined a little bit. So what's the end result? End result is that Azerbaijan feels victorious or is a clear winner. Armenia is wounded. Russia is cautious, and Turkey is ambitious. So the only permanent solution is a proper, full-fledged, once and for all ceasefire agreement, and once and for all they settle their NK issue. The status of NK should be sorted for once and all. Only then we will see some sort of peace, or else today things are okay. Maybe after a few months or maybe after a few years, we'll see the same war-like situation here. Now, the third topic is under Biden, security, empathy, liberal antipathy. It's going to be a bit different from what we have discussed so far. Now, the good news is that after telephonic conversation with a few European leaders last week, US President-elect Joe Biden told media that I am letting them know that America is back. We are going to be back in the game. What does this mean? This means that in Trump's era, things were very turbulent, isn't it? Mr. Trump, I'll give you one example that Mr. Trump said that if you want security of USA, if you want USA to provide you security and weapons and so many other things, then you need to pay as well. And those countries who will not pay, we will not provide you support. So it was very different. People were, or countries were expecting that Mr. Trump is going to be a strong leader and he's going to behave a bit more strongly when it comes to China. And if you ask me, then I would say that because, Mr. Trump or his regime started creating empty spaces, a vacuum that was created by Mr. Trump's administration gave confidence to China to fill up that vacuum with itself. But now, let's hope that Mr. Biden's administration will do this repair work, and he said that he will, this traditional norms and patterns of American foreign policy and diplomacy will be back, and it's going to be more calmer and predictable American policies and postures. So one question I'm sure you have in your mind is what will happen with China? Like Mr. Trump was very aggressive when it came to China. So is Joe Biden's administration going to be anti-China? Yes, Mr. Biden's administration will try its level best to control China's aggressive rise, but it's not going to be as aggressive as Mr. Trump, right? It's going to be more in a sort of sober diplomatic style. The U.S. administration, they will take all these countries into allies and other friendly countries into confidence, and then they will march on. So a big team rather than, under Trump's administration, it was looking like it was more like, you do it yourself, and we'll do it ourselves. That was the attitude, overall attitude under Trump in this Trump's era. So what New Delhi can expect? Civil and human rights and freedoms. This point, I want you guys to hold this point in your mind. I will throw some more light on it in next or slide after that. India's political and security elites have shed their inhibitions of a closer relationship with America. See, because of China's aggressive rise, China's bad behavior at LAC, it is very important that we have USA with us. Yesterday as well, we were talking about this thing, and India has signed all the foundational agreements, and it's going to be beneficial, right? Under Biden's regime as well, we are not going to unsign it, or it's not going to get rejected. Quad is also doing well. We just had Malabar exercise, isn't it? And under Mr. Biden's regime, bilateral trade as well as immigration issues will be sorted. Right, more H-1B visa will be given, and spouses of H-1B visa holders, they will also get work permit and they would be able to stay in USA. So that is going to be win-win for both nations. And bilateral trade as well is going to get a boost because, as I told you earlier on, I have explained this thing to you earlier on. Remember that Mr. Trump used to focus on trade deficit only, but trade deficit is not the only thing. Right, when it comes to bilateral trade, you have trade and investment. You will observe this thing that every time when you read some official statement, it will always refer as, most of the time it is trade and investment. So if USA is selling us items worth $4 and we are selling them items worth of $10, then it looks like we have $6 trade surplus with USA. But companies of USA, they have invested, let's say, $10 in our country, and they are making $2 every year, right, as a profit. So this is going to USA. So they don't calculate this thing, right? Mr. Trump, he never paid attention to, this is also important. I'm sure the other officials and the administration, but when it comes to giving a speech, he will always focus on trade deficit only. So I think we will have more better understanding of bilateral trade and investment. And India's democratic order was held as a good example for emulation by the developing world. These Democrats, they have always said that developing nations should follow India's example, India's democratic order. Now, I told you to hold this point in your mind, isn't it? Civil and human rights and freedoms. See, under Trump's administration, security and economic spheres were given huge amount of focus. When it came to human rights, it was not. It was important, but it was in the last bench, to be honest. Now, the reason why we are talking about this thing, civil and human rights and freedoms, is because some leaders in Democrat Party, they believe that India under Modi regime is not secular. They believe that we have done this our decision on Jammu and Kashmir and removal of Article 370 and this Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA and NRC and J&K decision. All these things are bad. That's what a few leaders of Democrats, that's what they believe. And there is one leader, Mrs. Jayapal. So Jayapal was, Mr. S. Jaishankar was supposed to meet this group of leaders, led by Ms. Jayapal, but our foreign minister said that he is not interested in meeting this group because this group, they have this bad, or they see India partially. They see India as not a secular nation. Means, of course, when I say not, they see not India but as government, right? They are talking about government, that government is not secular in nature and these decisions are not proper. Now, I'm not defending the government, but I want to, of course, I want to state whatever I know and whatever I feel in front of you guys, and then I want you guys to decide what is right for our country. See, the first thing is, our country, India, is not secular because of our constitution. There are so many things written in our constitution. Our constitution says that we should not have any sort of inequality. But we have inequality. We are not equal, isn't it? I'm talking about practical world. I'm not talking about law. I'm not talking about constitution. On books, we know that inequality is not accepted. It means it is not allowed, but it is still there. Discrimination is not allowed, but it is still there in our society. We have a word called secular in our constitution, but our constitution is not secular because it was written in a way, or the people who wrote, they were secular. If you go back in the history of our country, in the culture of our country has always been secular. And I sometimes feel like you don't need to use this word secular in our country, because even secular word will fall a bit short when it comes to India. We have always exchanged new ideas and new way of worship and new forms of God, and every possible thing you can think of has always been accepted in our country, India. We have to also understand this thing that we have 18% of global population. 18%. So we are not just a country, we are like a big continent. So if in this 18% population of the world, if you find a few people, whereas a few, I'm talking about just few hundreds, or they are even in 2 digits, they are not more than 100. If few peoples are fighting with each other somewhere, then you cannot blame the whole nation. You cannot say the whole nation is not secular or the government is not secular. You can have any sort of government, right? You can have any sort of government, but the secular fabric of our country, and every politician in this country, they know this thing very well, that whatever you do, it's going to be nearly impossible, or it is going to be impossible to delete the secular nature of our way of life. So Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not just a sort of political mantra. It is in our DNA. So what I'm trying to tell here is that these leaders like Jayapal and other leaders in Democrats, they have to understand. I believe they have lack of understanding about India and our way of life, and they follow some sort of reports, and that's the reason why they have this sort of opinion about India. Moving on to the last topic of the day, constitutional fault lines. Now we have Tamil Nadu's governor Banwari Lal Purohit. He is in news because he has not taken any decision so far on this application seeking pardon filed by A.G. Perarivalan, one of the 7 prisoners convicted in Rajiv Gandhi assassination case. Now, Council of Ministers, that is ministers and chief minister of, or you can say the government of Tamil Nadu, they have passed a resolution, and they want all these 7 prisoners to be released. Okay, but governor has not taken any decision on this thing so far. So, if you go back in 1981, and if we see this decision taken by 5-judge bench Supreme Court's 5-judge bench said that in this Maru Ram versus Union of India 1981 case, that under Articles 72 and 161 of the Constitution, a president or governor, they have to follow the decision taken by the central government or state governments. So if Union Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister, if they advise President to pardon a particular person, then the President has to do it. Same thing applies on the governor. If Council of Ministers headed by Chief Minister, if they advise governor to pardon a particular person or not pardon a particular person, then that advice is bound on governor, as per this 1981 case. But what we find here, that even after Council of Ministers have clearly passed a resolution favoring release of these 7 prisoners, the governor has not said anything, or governor is still silent on this particular topic. So is there any way out? The only way out looks like judicial intervention. For a very long period of time, governors as well as speakers, they thought that they are not, because they are constitutional functionaries, they are not answerable for their actions, and they don't come under the purview of judicial scrutiny. But the Supreme Court made it clear that constitutional functionaries are not exempt from judicial scrutiny, and it was clearly stated in this Kesham Megha Chandra Singh case. So now let's wait and watch what will happen in future about this case, but it looks like we need judicial intervention here. Before May 2021, we need to sort this thing out, because they are going to have election, and then we may have new Council of Ministers. So this Council of Ministers or this government's decision is not followed by governor, that is not right, isn't it? That is not good for our democracy as well as our politics. So that's everything from my side, dear friends. I will see you soon with one more lecture of mine, that is daily financial news analysis. These are some news items. I want you guys to download the PDF and go through it in detail, and I will see you soon. You can download the PDF of today's lecture from my Telegram channel. You can follow me on Facebook. Please hit the like button if you have learned something from today's discussion. Do share this lecture with 3, 4 or more students. The more you can share this lecture with, the better it is going to be for this series. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. God bless you all. Jai Hind.